Welcome to another edition of Founders Tales. Delighted to be joined by David Brown today, who is the co-founder of Helix Carbon. Do you want to give everybody an introduction to yourself, David, and your business?
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, thank you so much for having me here. It's an absolute pleasure. It's an honor to be selected for the Founders Tales. Real excited to be here. So myself, I am, as you said, the co-founder and chief operating officer of Helix Carbon. Prior to that, I got my MBA at Sloan. That's where I met my co-founders here in Boston. And I was a U.S. Army Apache helicopter pilot for 8 years prior to coming to Sloan. And I got my BS in chemical engineering, which is pretty relevant to what we do. So what we're able to do is utilize carbon dioxide directly out of dilute in dirty waste streams. So instead of needing carbon capture and separation, we can just take the entire stream into our electrolyzer system, and we convert it right back into the exact same gas that is already being used at a lot of these places, some form of syngas or pure carbon monoxide that can be used for iron reduction, chemicals, etc.
Fantastic. And what was the problem that first sparked the idea for the business?
So the problem is actually a little bit shifted from where we are now, which I personally find interesting as a founder, but it's originally started with finding a way to utilize carbon dioxide really effectively. So there's a real problem with carbon capture and utilization right now, and that is utilization needs pure carbon dioxide waste streams from carbon capture units, and carbon capture is very expensive. So the utilization piece is very expensive, and so anything you utilize is really going to have a tough time competing with the status quo, which is fossil fuels. So you can either improve carbon capture, or you can try and make your utilization a lot more effective. And that's kind of where this started, is if we could get a really high energy efficiency in utilizing this carbon dioxide, we could actually then kind of drive more effective carbon capture in a sense, because now carbon capture would have a place to send all the carbon dioxide. In chasing that down, we did a lot of customer discovery, and we found that what customers cared about, and what people would pay for wasn't necessarily that service, but what people would pay for was, say, new mixed gases, and our ability to operate directly in dilute and dirty waste streams kind of came off of those customer discovery talks, and we realized that there was a different problem we could solve.
Yeah, brilliant. And I would imagine the transition from being a helicopter pilot to startup founder has been quite a transition. So what's maybe one thing that you thought was going to be applicable to a startup that turned out to be completely false?
Well, the flying skills haven't been super relevant. I'll say that much. I'll say the one part for me that I was really excited about as well, I was like, oh, I'm going into startup. At least I won't have to use PowerPoint as much. And that has been totally wrong. Still so many presentations, and my co-founder is a BCG guy, so he's really good at PowerPoint, and he makes my poor Army PowerPoint skills not so great. Other than that, I think, the skill sets that I had, and I think this goes to anyone who's potentially starting a business, you can probably make it work. You need a lot of complementary skill sets to get a startup off the ground and work as a small team. And there's probably a niche you can fill. There's probably something that you have that no one else does or is unique, and you can use that to build yourself into a good spot.
Yeah. And what else have you learned kind of building day to day that you didn't necessarily know before starting the company?
I think that the hardest lesson that you learn is that in a startup, It doesn't move unless you move. And so you, like in Army, big corporate, what have you, companies move forward. It's just going, and you are along for the ride, and you're kind of a cog amongst many cogs. That's not the case in a startup. And so you're going to be faced with a lot of situations where you have uncertainty. Maybe you don't believe, you don't know what to do next, and you don't take action because you don't know what to do. And if you don't take action, it's not moving. And so that's something you can't really learn in a book, or you can read it in a book, right? And you can hear me talk about it, but until you felt that and taken action to combat it, you really have no idea. But you really need to always be action oriented and continue moving forward.
Yep, good advice. How did you guys convince your first investor or your first customer to believe in the mission that you have for the company?
I'd say it's a lot easier to convince your first investor if you already have a customer. Significantly easier to do that. So convincing your customer then is probably the most important. And the real answer is you have to offer them something that they want. I mean, it's real easy to sell water to someone who's thirsty. You don't even need to sell it. They just want it. And if you have something like that, that your customer wants, or you can frame your technological advantage for your customer, that they're coming to you to get it, it makes it a whole lot easier. If you don't have something like that, you need to drum up customer interest somehow. There needs to be some benefit for them that you can find a way to communicate and get any type of customer traction that you can, because as cool as your technology could be, an investor is simply not going to invest if there's just no traction at all. And like, even if you're really early, you have to have some sort of customer traction, or at least interest, before anyone's going to give you money.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys are quite a lean team at the moment, but when you start to build out and scale out the team, what kind of startup DNA are you going to be looking for Helix Carbon?
Yeah, so we've got a lean team, but lean but mighty, and you can do a lot. You're lean but mean. You can do a lot with a small team if people have the right mindset. And that's really what we look for. So our first hire, Dr. Michael Brendan Smith, has been a phenomenal hire. And a lot of that was, he is not afraid to push through problems. And on a small team, you need people who can, they can operate independently, and they can see a problem and solve it without any input. And they're willing to operate in that zone. And that is what we look for. People who can make good decisions with limited information and are constantly trying to push forward.
Yeah, makes sense. And then building out the business in Boston, what are your thoughts in terms of advantages or difficulties when it comes to building out there versus maybe the West Coast or New York?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy building in Boston. We were at MIT, we're a team of MIT founders, right? So we like being close to that ecosystem. We like being close to the Boston ecosystem, which has been just a phenomenal place to be. Are there similar advantages in San Francisco, New York? I'm sure there are. If you are building a different type of company, I'm sure fintech is great in New York. There's a lot of resources there. In San Francisco, the same. But for hard tech, clean tech, where we're at, Boston is just the place to be. There's so many events. There are so many people to meet. There are so many visitors, investors here. There's a lot of lab space. It's pretty expensive, but if you've got the investors, you can pay for it. And there's just so much here to build. And the only real problem with the ecosystem, and this is maybe not a problem for everyone, is that you want to probably get really good at wherever you're building. You want to be really close to your customers. And so, if you're building, depending on what you're building, Boston might not be super close to your customers and you might want to go somewhere else. But for a lot of folks, a lot of their customers are here.
Yeah. And you mentioned tapping into your and your colleagues' MIT networks, but in addition to that, are there any particular local meetups, resources, etc., that have been really beneficial to you guys?
Yeah, of course, have to shout out the Climate Salon by Victoria Bassini. If you've never been to one or you're into climate, keep your eye out for those. She hosts these meetups that bring climate entrepreneurs together. That's been phenomenal. Meet a ton of great people there. There's also, we're based in the Engine in Cambridge, and that has been a fantastic resource for us, not just with the resource that they give, but everyone else who's there, the little internal ecosystem within the Engine. Greentown Labs is the same way. We don't have a bench there necessarily yet, potentially in the future, but that place, and they're really growing nationally as well. They're really taking off. And of course, I have to shout out the Mass Clean Energy Center. Phenomenal programs, the Mass Clean Energy Center. They have all kinds of grants, all kinds of opportunities, and they will invest in you as well if you are investable. They invested in us. We're very thankful for that. Just really great team over there, and can't thank them enough.
Yeah, brilliant. Some great shout outs there. Thank you. So moving on maybe to some reflections. If you could send a message to yourself, day one of the business, what would that message be? What would you say?
See, that's a really great question, because for me, I was transitioning. I was kind of building this as a student, and I imagine it would be a little bit different for someone who's just like jumping in with both feet, which maybe you should start a little bit earlier. But I'd say you want to learn as much as you can, and you should go to events. I think that was something that I didn't necessarily realize at first, because for me, building this as a student, there is a line where you're like, at what point do I have a startup? At what point am I an entrepreneur? At what point is this a company? Even before you founded anything, I've been working on this, but where's the line from project to startup? And I think you really should treat those early days, months, years before you really founded anything as, there's so much learning that can be done there. And the only failure state for your company is if you run out of money. And if you haven't actually founded a company, and you're, getting income from other sources, and you're just kind of exploring entrepreneurship, there is no failure. There's no way to fail. Right. And so don't be afraid to go out and learn as much. You treat it as if it's the realest thing in the world, even if you really don't know what it is yet. And go to those events and talk as if like you've been a startup CEO for 10 years. And I cannot stress enough the events. It is one of the reasons why we love the Boston ecosystem, right? There's so many events here. I've got one small example is, I was at an event once. It's just a random coffee event for cleantech startups, and there's a guy next to me, and I saw on his name tag that he was, C-level position at pretty big startup around here. I won't say exactly which one, but like one of these Boston startups, right? Very important guy, and he put his iPhone down at the table. We were just grabbing coffee at the same table, and I just peeked, and the guy had 35,000 unread emails. 35,000 unread emails. You send an email to that guy, he's not getting it. Like, it's not happening, right? But
that's why he's not got back to me.
That's why he hasn't gotten back to you. Right? He's got too much going on. But in that moment, I just said, "Hey, I'm Dave." And I stuck out my hand, and he responded and shook my hand, and like I didn't need anything. But in that moment, I had his attention, right? Because I went to the event, and skipped a lot of events because I wasn't like, I was like, oh, do I really like, and a lot of the people I needed to meet at that time were at those events. And so that would be the kind of a real mishmash of advice there, but that's what I tell myself.
Yeah, brilliant. And through that networking process, I presume you have had lots of conversations with, other founders, co-founders, etc. So if you maybe had to pick out one particular piece of advice you've received that is really rung true or been really beneficial to you, what would you pick out?
I'd say it's something we kind of already talked about a little bit. Is the best advice I got is just do something. The cure to everything that ails you is action. And I've had more than a few people tell me this, but like, you're uncertain, you're stressed, you have doubts. Like, sitting around isn't going to cure any of that. Only moving forward, only taking action, and even if it's the wrong action, is probably better than doing nothing, and you can probably fix it. So taking meaningful, and I don't just mean like, I think we all kind of do this, like, oh, this thing is stressing me out, like, what if I organize my calendar? Like, that's like, no, you just take meaningful action and move forward, because as we said, the company only moves when you're moving.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one final question for you, David. So how do you personally stay motivated, sane when it comes to dealing with the inevitable highs and lows of building out a startup from scratch?
Who said anything about staying sane? I stay
unsane.
Yeah, I certainly didn't say anything about that. No, so the motivation is a big part of it. Working on something that's very meaningful to you helps a lot. I really, really care about this mission. I really, really care about what we're doing, and so that helps a lot. I also have a phenomenal support system. I have a wife and child, and it is so good to work with them. They're very supportive. My wife is very understanding of what I'm doing. She was in the Army as well, and so she knows what it's like to not kind of have any work-life balance at all, and she gets that and is part of the mission. And then my son is not yet 2, so he doesn't really have a choice, but he's so cute and gives me great hugs when I get home, and that really helps.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, what a nice positive note to finish on. So thank you very much for your time today, David. Really enjoyed talking to you, and love the mission that you guys have. So, sincerely, best of luck to yourself and Helix Carbon moving forward.
Chris, thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on.
Pleasure.